Welcome everyone. This is our session getting started with SharePoint team sites. I am Tejas Mehta. I'm a program manager on the SharePoint product team. I focus on team collaboration scenarios. And over the last year and a half to 2 years, I've been particularly focused on integrating SharePoint team sites with Office 365 groups and Microsoft Teams. I'm here with Miceile. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Miceile Barrett. I'm a program manager on the same team as Tejas. Over the last 2 years, I focused on content collaboration, so really focusing on files and lists and ways that you can use metadata to collaborate more effectively in those spaces.
Great. So we're going to sit down awkwardly because we thought we'd have a podium and sort of switch between demos and deck, but just given the fact that the table is here, I'm going to sit. So this session is really dedicated to team sites, and we'll be spending a lot of time doing demos. Our hope is that you'll walk away learning some nuggets of information that you can take back to your own respective environments and work on your own team sites. And they could be brand new team sites from scratch or existing ones. The hope is that you'll get more value out of your sites from this session. All right. So as you've probably already seen, we've been on a multi-year journey to reimagine content collaboration with a beautiful SharePoint. And to that end, in this session, we're going to take you on a tour that comprises 3 parts. The first part will be focused on getting the most out of your modern team site experiences. And that's, again, applicable for new and existing team sites of all flavors. And Miceile will dive in and give you a tour of the latest on lists and libraries, pages, news, flows, and more. In part 2, we'll switch gears and we'll talk about Office 365 groups and how you can get more value out of your SharePoint team sites by adding the resources that come with a group. And then in part 3, we'll talk about the work that we've been doing over the last year and a half with our counterparts in Microsoft Teams and really making SharePoint experiences light up in Teams for a better together story. Does that sound good? All right, take it away, Miceile.
Thank you. So as I mentioned before, I focused in the content collaboration space. And this is a slide I like to kick off before going into demos to kind of center where SharePoint lies within that space. And so as I'm sure you guys know, there's a lot of different ways to collaborate as a team right now. And we like to think of OneDrive and SharePoint as being the central content management for all of the actual content that your team is collaborating on. And of course, when you put things in OneDrive and SharePoint, it's secure and leverages AI, such as the Microsoft Graph, and anything can be built extensively on the platform of SharePoint. And so we've mentioned a couple times, we want to go ahead and change the slide, on team sites. And so I want to just do a quick recap on the slide on what exactly is a team site. This is the place where it's a central repository for all of that content we keep mentioning. There's a lot of words on this slide, and I'm actually going to jump right into a demo to show what the team site can do and the best ways that you can leverage this. Okay, so I have landed on my team site, Contoso Procurement Canada. And when we look at this team site, we can actually see that it is a classic team site. Something that we've noticed in our customers is a pattern where they take a existing site, like we see here with this Contoso procurement, and they start modernizing individual pieces of it so that they can leverage the new features we have without having to fully migrate each piece of their content. So I'm going to use the next about 15 to 20 minutes to go through what that looks like and ways that you guys can do this in your either classic sites or modern sites. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to this tab that I have here called Team News. And you'll notice we transitioned into the modern SharePoint space. And this is a page that I created showing all of the news in this team site. So what is news? News is a page that you can publish where it will announce the publication of the page to your team. So it's a way to keep everyone updated and really informed about what exactly is going on in your team. So I'm going to go through and actually create a new news post summarizing my team's Q2 status. So you saw that I clicked new. I can go in here and name my news post. Q2 updates. I'm going to add a picture for the background. You know, so I can focus on the smile. Now I'm going to go and add a document library web part. And this is going to pull all the documents from any library that I choose. So for this news post, I want to pull my Procurement Canada documents. And so we see them rendering, and we see all of the format and customizations I have in that document library. I'm going to change the layout of this page and actually make it a 2x2. And now this allows me to add another web part on the side here. So I'm going to add something called list properties. And now when I added that, you saw it looks pretty empty. It's kind of lame. And there's just a big connect button. I'm going to show you what that means. I can actually hook up these two web parts so they can talk to each other on this page. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to connect to a source. I'm connecting to that document library that I already added, and I'm choosing to display a selected item. Now on this Q2 status update, I don't really care if my team can see the stream metadata or the owner metadata that I have. So I'm going to hide those two fields. I'm going to exit out of this. And what did that do? So now when I go in and I actually select on this document, you see the connected web part starts to render the metadata that I've already added in that document library, and I can go through and edit it here or just view it, whatever I need to do in that space. Now the last web part I'm going to add is a Twitter feed from a very large conference that we had in Q2. You guys might recognize SPConf. And we automatically start seeing all of the posts that are happening from that conference. So I can go ahead and post that news. And what this is doing is everyone who's a member or a part of this team site is actually getting a notification that this news has been out. You see that it rolled up into this page. So one of the first things we see here is Q2 updates so that everyone can land in this space and immediately see what's going on in the team site. And so when they navigate into that news post, you'll see the published version of what we just created in the first 5 minutes I had with you guys. The list properties hooked up, a stream of all the cool tweets coming in from the Q2 conference that we had, and you're able to publish that within seconds. So while I've been in here, I've showed in the classic experience and on this page what a document library looks like. I want to do a quick summary of what some of the new features are in document libraries and what you guys can do to get started in it. So I'm going to navigate to my default document library here. And when we land here, we see a couple of things going on. This is the document library that Tejas and I use to make sure that all of our content is getting ready to go to our customer. And so we have a couple of custom columns. We see value, review date, completed, and there's a little bit of formatting, right? We see that the volume columns have this blue kind of indication on which one's more, which one's less. We see this red row indicating that the review date has actually already passed. If we scroll down, we see one more is a little bit late. But this library can get so much more effective to help your team do more in this space. So the first thing I want to do is upload a template so that every single Word document that we create will have the same format and the same structure for our customers. So I'm going to go in and actually click Add Template. And we see here I already have one created, Customer Spec Template. And I'm going to open it. We see one item uploaded. So now when I drop down this menu, you see Customer Spec Template is there. Notice, for those who have been using SharePoint for a while, something looks very different here. We still have all of the existing default templates appearing. This is a new feature that we released a few months ago where you can show the default with custom templates. So I can actually go in and edit this new menu right here and say, I actually don't need to see that Word document that's blank since I just uploaded the template I want my team to use. And I don't really need OneNote. I don't need an Excel workbook. I can hit Save. And now that new menu is showing exactly what I need for my team to work in this space effectively. So let's actually go and create a document from this new template. So I open it, it's creating a new file leveraging the template I just uploaded. We see that it's saved. I'll just leave it named as document right now. So when I go back to my site, we see that this document was just created. This is an important file. I just made it. I want my team to start looking at it immediately. So to call attention to it, I'm actually going to select that new file I just created, and I'm going to pin it to the top. So this means whenever someone lands in this document library, they're going to see this pinned file so they can immediately start acting on it and helping me get it ready for the customer. Now, when we first landed in this space, one of the things I pointed out was this really awesome formatting we had to indicate what's late, what the values are. And so I want to show off a friendly formatting experience that we have released to help you guys customize these experiences as quickly as possible. I see this completed column over here. I'm going to go into the column settings, and actually format this column. When I click the fill background colors, I see that it turns my nose into reds and my greens into greens. But that's not enough. I want my team to really know when that file's not completed. I'm going to go in to edit this, and I'm going to turn this into a bright red. It's still not enough. I need an alert sign so that they know exactly when that file's blocked. So I hit save, and you saw within a few clicks, we now have a really clear visual indicator that this file is not completed. Now, this column's important. Why is it over here in the far right? I actually want it to be much more present for my team to see. So I'm going to drag and drop it over so it's one of the first columns anyone notices when they land to my library. Awesome. To make it even more visually clear on which is completed or not, I'm going to pivot my document library based on the data in this column. So I go in and I say column settings, grouped by completed. And we now see these 3 files are not completed, and these 20 are. When I look at these, I see there's a review date for tomorrow, but they're not completed. That makes no sense. I'm going to go in, I'm going to select both of these files. I'm going to bulk update their metadata and push that review date out. There's no way we're going to be ready to review them tomorrow. I'm going to actually go in and set that review date for a week from tomorrow. I'm going to hit save, and you can see that they all updated all the files I selected. And this works for either selecting an entire group, selecting files across different groups, or selecting the entire library. You can edit the metadata just in a few clicks like that. So I'm going to cancel out of that. I've just done all this work. I do not want my team to have to come through and do this again. So I'm going to go in and save this view. I'm going to save this view as completed. And I'm keeping it as a public view. So this means that when someone comes to actually view this document library, they'll see all the formatting they added, they'll see the way I arranged the column order, they'll see the grouped by work that I did, so it's really clear to see which files are completed or not. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Great. The last thing I want to do is actually be able to read all of the title here. As you can see, it's kind of cut off. I'm going to drag and drop this column over so that we can see the entire title. Notice we have an asterisk up here in this view now. This means that the view properties were changed. I am super excited to announce that last year we shipped a feature where the column widths are now stored as part of the view properties. So if I go in and actually resave this view, whenever someone comes to this document library across any browser, a mobile device, any different experience, they will always be able to see that column width showing the entire title. I think I heard a clap. Excellent. So I've just spent a lot of time talking to you guys about metadata and these columns and how you organize it, but why is this important, right? Why do you want to do all this work in your library? And the reason is so that you can slice and dice your data to actually find things faster and use it the way that you need to. So I'm going to go into my filters pane, and you can see that I can actually search by word and files that are not completed. So within 2 clicks, I'm able to super quickly find that exact file that I'm looking for. And I can even go through and resave this as a view, as a filtered down view, so that all the files coming into this will always be populated. Now this pane is customizable. Out of the box, we have chosen the 4 most common types of columns that we see, but that might not be enough for your team's needs. So as you see, I've added this completed one. I can actually go in and remove it. And it's no longer there. So you can customize the filters pane to do exactly what you need it to do. So let me go back to my all documents view and clear the filters. When I had started this demo, the first thing that I mentioned was that the whole point of this library was to get these documents into the hands of our customers. And so one way that we like to do this is by leveraging out-of-the-box flows. And so I just want to iterate here that I have not done anything in the background of this document library. As you guys see, it is how it kind of came. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into this flow dropdown, and we automatically see set a reminder flow appearing. This will add itself to the flow command bar as soon as any date field is added to the library or list. So you see here I have one date field called review date. If I go in, I can click on it, and I can send myself a reminder based on that date. So this is opening the actual flow panel, and I'm going to say get an email reminder 3 days before that happens. So what this is actually going to do is set something in this library so that when I have something that's within 3 days of that review date, I get an email digest reminding me like, hey, maybe you need to go check this out. It's approaching quickly. And so that happens automatically when you add a date field. The second flow that my team likes to use to make sure that the correct people are looking at the correct files before we send it to our customer is a request sign-off. I'm going to go in and actually select this file here. And now when I go to the flow, we see another flow appear called request sign-off. Again, nothing done in the background. This automatically will happen for every document library. I click request sign-off, and I can now enter in the email and a message that I want to send. So I'm going to send my coworker, Tejas, who's Isaiah, say, does page 6 look good? And I run that flow. So that is now sending an email to Isaiah asking for his approval or his rejection. And he'll be able to look at that content and see that I was actually looking for feedback. And so these are two flows that can happen on any document library. You don't need to configure anything in the back end, and it really helps teams get their work done faster. So I want to show one last thing before I hand back over to Tejas, and that is lists. SharePoint is more than just pages and document libraries. They have lists too. And so I'm going to jump over into another team site where I have a retail accounts list. And now I actually want to go and create a Canadian accounts list for my Procurement Canada site. If I go into this actual list here, I really like the fact that they already have postal codes, store names, all these columns are created. It's super useful. I don't want to have to recreate this work. If I go down into the views, I can see there's actually something already there called customized view, where someone has already done the work to get this formatter to render my list in a way that's much more visually appealing than a list of data. But I don't want to have to redo this formatter or anything. So I'm actually going to create my new list in the correct site, leveraging this list that's already been used by the retails team. So I'm going to go back into my Contoso Procurement Canada site, go into my site contents, and I'm going to create a new list. I'm going to choose from an existing list, and let's call this Canadian account, or Canada accounts. And that one was in my retail site, so you can pick a list from any site. And I'm going to choose the retail accounts that I just showed you and hit create. So I land in this list, and you see the columns already appearing as they were previously. I can click new, and the form that I have already configured in that list is brought over, so I don't need to do any additional work. So I can go in and let's just fill something out here. We can do Tim Hortons. That's Canadian. And then this belongs to me. I'm Henrietta. My sales target will be 30,000. It is indeed display ready. And the location, let's find a Tim Hortons. Perfect. Customer ready, no, great. So I hit save, and we see it fill out just the way that I would expect. And when I drop down, I still have the formatting in the customized view, and it renders exactly as it did in the previous list. So I just showed a lot. I'm going to go back into the slides and do a recap on what I showed, and then hand back off to Tejas. I'm going to switch back over. Perfect. So we started this demo with looking at the pages, and in that space we showed that you can easily connect the web parts together. There's a lot of other sessions coming up that we'll reference at the end for more examples on how to connect web parts. And then we also did an easy layout with separating it by the 2x2 columns, and then demonstrated how you could actually create news to keep your team updated. Next, we went into document libraries, where I ran through a huge list of new features that we have. Everything that I showed is already rolling out, so you guys should be able to access this within your environment, which is really awesome. And then lastly, we showed lists. And so the list from list and list from Excel is rolling out now. We have not started going to prod, but we hope to within the next week or two. So you guys should start seeing that functionality hitting soon. And then I did not go super deep into lists, but if you want to hit again, there's another session for lists. If you guys want to follow me at 4:15 to the list section, where we'll go into a deep dive as to how you can use those lists to power even more in SharePoint. And the last thing I want to iterate with is everything I just showed works in all flavors of team sites. So I've listed out the 3 different types of team sites you can have. The one that I was demoing from is a classic non-group connected site. And if you don't know what any of those words mean, it's a good thing you're here, because Tejas is going to take it away.
All right, thanks, Miceile. So that concludes part 1 of the 3 sections that we'll cover in this session. We'll transition now to talk about Office 365 groups. So first, a little bit about Office 365 groups. As you might already be aware, Office 365 groups is a membership service that lets you choose a set of people that you want to work with. And as a result, you get a number of resources that you can collaborate with, including tools like Outlook for email, Teams if you want to add a real-time chat, Planner for tasks, and of course, SharePoint team site. Now, every Office 365 group is backed by a SharePoint team site. So irrespective of which collaboration tool that you might be using, you should rest assured that SharePoint, playing the role of the content service for Office 365 groups, is the engine that's serving up files, lists, pages, and news experiences for them. Another key benefit of Office 365 groups is that they govern more than just the membership. Policies that you can apply on a group actually apply to all of the resources that the group has. And some examples include a naming policy or expiry policy, so you can govern the life cycle and sort of managing these groups, who can create groups within your environment. So groups effectively provide a single compliance boundary that applies to all of the different resources within the group, so that you don't have to manage policy and life cycle independently. If you're interested, there's an entire session dedicated to managing Office 365 groups and governance. Mike McLean is leading that session. That's tomorrow afternoon. I'll include a pointer to that in a slide at the end of the deck, if you want to go hit that session as well. So as you might already know, when you create a team site today from SharePoint Home, the default behavior is that you get a site that is automatically connected to an Office 365 group. And that comes with all of the resources that we just talked about. But you might be wondering, well, that's all well and great. I'm sitting in an environment where I have a bunch of existing team sites. Am I out of luck? Is there any way that I can add group resources to those sites? What do you guys think? Yes? You are not? Well, we do have a feature for that. So just a quick show of hands, who has used the colloquial groupify feature, which allows you to take classic non-group connected sites and add an Office 365 group to it? One person. All right. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to segue into a demo. So. All right. I'm starting here on the same site that Miceile was working on, the Contoso Procurement Canada site. And it's got a bunch of activity that's taken place here. There are files in the document library, and as you saw, Miceile worked with some pages and some lists. But it is a classic non-group connected site. And the first thing that I want to do as part of this demo is show you how you can add an Office 365 group to it. So in the top, you'll see the gear menu. If I click on that, an option shows up in the menu that says Connect to New Office 365 Group. So that's the menu option that you can use to invoke the wizard that comes up that will actually guide you through the process. The first splash screen that shows up tells you a little bit about what an Office 365 group is, and we just talked about that right now. But it also gives you a couple of key points of things that will happen as part of this groupification process. For one, your existing site, all of its content, its permissions hierarchy, all of that will remain exactly the same. A new modern page will be added to the pages library of the site, and it will be set as the home page for the site. And then as part of the wizard flow here, it will ask you to add owners and members for the new group that you're creating. So let's go and go through that process. I'm going to click on Let's Get Started. And the next panel that appears in the wizard is one that's asking for information about this new group that I'm creating. So there's a field for name, the group email address for its mailbox. There's a privacy dropdown. Let me just zoom in so it's easier for you to see. You can choose between private and public. Public means it's open to anybody within your tenant, and private is the group is available or accessible only to members of the group. I'm going to go now and, so we pre-populate this form with data from the underlying site, but you're free to change that information here before you create the new group. So I'll click on Connect Group right now. And what's happening under the covers is a new Office 365 group is being provisioned. And normally when you create a group, a brand new team site is created for that group as well. In this case, we're not creating a new site. We're telling that group to point to this existing Contoso procurement site to be its SharePoint team site resource. So while that's happening, this panel here allows me to add additional, whoops, let this zoom it here, additional owners and members for the new group that I'm creating. And this panel is actually pre-populated. We use some intelligence to inspect people that have site access already to the site, whether they're owners or members, and we propose them as owners or members of the new Office 365 group that's being created. You can add people here, you can remove them, but the important thing to note is if you want any people in your group of collaborators to have access to all of the group's resources, they actually have to be either a member or an owner of the group. So I'm going to click on Finish. And while that happens, that should just refresh the page here. Might have had a little bit of a demo issue. I'm just going to run through that panel just one more time real quick. It looks like the process might have happened already. See what happens. Click on Home here. If this doesn't work, I will switch to another site that I've actually gone through the Group of 5 process for. Apologies for that. So if that demo worked, we would have been redirected to a team site homepage, a brand new team site homepage for the new group connected team site. And I will just orient you on what you would expect to see. In the header, you'll see there's a note in the header that says private group, indicating that this is a group connected site. There's a member count that shows up in the header as well. If you click on that, it shows you the members of the group that you would have created. You can manage membership for that Office 365 group right here in SharePoint. In the left navigation, what we do as part of this Groupify process is we include a link to the previous homepage for the site. So if you happen to have had customizations, web parts, or content on that classic homepage before you Groupified it and you need it, you can rest assured that we include that link in the left nav so that your users can get back to that page. In the left nav, we also have a link to Conversations, which is a link to the Outlook mailbox for the group. And you can edit the left navigation and include other links to other resources for the group, whether it's Planner or if there happens to be a team for this group, you can do that as well. So on this page, you see the layout this is the default layout for a team site homepage that's group connected. There's a news web part, and if the previous demo had worked, you would see a bunch of news articles that would have shown up here in this list and that you can click on and interact with. We include a quick links web part in the top right so that you can curate a list of relevant links for your team. I'd like to draw your attention to the activity web part that's part of the default layout as well. And the site activity web part is one that aggregates activity that's taking place not just within the SharePoint team site, so things that are happening on files, lists, and pages, but as you do more things within the Office 365 group, for example, Planner, tasks, and Outlook email cards will also show up in the site activity web part. I'm going to quickly switch over to another team site that has some of that group activity, just to give you a flavor for that. So I'll scroll down. So this is another homepage for another site. It's Contoso Sourcing Europe. I'll scroll down to the activity web part here, and you'll see that there is a planner card showing up, that there's a task due today, a couple of tasks due tomorrow, and then also in this web part, you will see, where'd it go? You will see an Outlook card as well. So this site activity web part is actually extremely valuable for your team. It's a great one-stop shop for your group of collaborators to get up to speed on what's going on, not just within SharePoint, but beyond the site, but also taking place within the context of the Office 365 group. All right, so that concludes, I guess, this part of the demo. We'll go back to slides. Okay. All right, so just a quick recap and calls to action. If you've not taken advantage of the Connect to Office 365 groups for your classic non-group connected sites, do that so that you can take advantage of those group collaborative resources that you get in addition to just the site. So tasks in Planner, emails in Outlook, and the ability to add a Microsoft team. You also get to help eliminate FOMO. Does everyone in the audience know what FOMO is? It's the notion of fear of missing out. Often when people are working in a team, they don't know whether, you have to triage like a mailbox for new emails that are coming in. You have to go to like a planner for your task management. The whole idea behind the activity web part is to really aggregate all of that important information that's relevant for your team and sort of bubble that up into a single place. All right, how are we on time? I think we're doing okay. All right, I'm going to transition now to the third section of this session, which is focused on Microsoft Teams and the work that we've been doing across OneDrive and SharePoint with our counterparts in the Teams organization. But as you probably already know, Microsoft Teams is a hub for teamwork. It's a chat-based app that enables teams to be more productive by giving them a single place to get all of their work done. And using Teams, users can communicate with one another either through one-on-one chat or group chat or via meetings or calls. And they can also collaborate on content, whether that sits within Office 365, Word, PowerPoint, Office, or in SharePoint, whether it's files, lists, or pages, or tasks in Planner, or also outside of Microsoft properties. Third-party app integrations and plugins exist so that you can bring all of that context right into the Teams experience. So Teams is a powerful hub for collaboration, and there are dedicated deep dive sessions this week. So if you're interested in learning more about particular areas for Teams, I encourage you to go check those out. I will also include a link to some of those in the last slide in this session as well. But for this particular session, I did want to focus on how team sites and teams play together. So we talked about Office 365 groups in the last section. And a team is just another resource that a group can have, much like the Outlook mailbox or the tasks in Planner and the SharePoint team site. So the question should never be, when should I use a Microsoft team versus a SharePoint team site? Because these tools don't actually compete with one another. They are entirely complementary, and you can be using them together to really enhance your team's collaboration. So in fact, we have data that validates the better together tagline that you see on the slide. We know that just the mere presence of a Microsoft team in a group results in healthier collaboration on the underlying team site that sort of backs that team. We see more users uploading content like files, sharing that content, and working together. It really leads to higher engagement and retention. So just the presence of a team and having people engage in that real-time chat-based interaction on content in SharePoint really does help drive collaboration. So if you're an organization that's embracing this new way of work in a single app and centralizing all of your collab around persistent chat, we celebrate that as the SharePoint team, and we look to bring all of the richness of SharePoint experiences right into the team's context. But if you're an organization that's also comfortable with sites and team sites and the configurability and the level of customization that you can do, more power to you. The point is that you don't have to choose. You get the best of both, and you can let your users work the way that they work. All right, so I'm going to transition to more demos. Hopefully no failures. I'm going to start here. Okay, I'm back on the Contoso Sourcing Europe site. So this is a site that we've been using for some time. It has a page, a lot of activity. So it has lists, libraries, pages, news. You can see some of the pages that show up here in the news web part on the right. There's other pages in the page library as well. But I'll call out the document library. I'll switch over to this other tab where I've already loaded the doclib for this particular site. It's got metadata columns, much in the same way that Miceile just showed you. It has row formatting, again, just bringing more value to the content that's sitting in the document library. This particular site also has a nicely formatted list. This is the same list that Miceile showed as well. So these are all great SharePoint experiences, but now you might be asking, if I've now made a decision to really get my users to ramp up on Teams and start using these experiences in that context, how can I do that? So let's switch over to Teams, and I'll show you how. Wait for it to load up. OK. So I'm here in the team for that same site that I just showed you. So that was a group-connected site that also happens to have a team associated with it. So I'm in the general channel, so you can see that there's some chat activity that's already taken place for my group. And the first thing I'll do is I'll switch over to the Files tab here. And what you'll see will look pretty familiar from what you've seen in the last couple of demos. You've got what looks like the document library with metadata columns. You've got what looks like row formatting that matches what you just saw in the document library before. You have the ability to group by and filter this list in various ways. Miceile showed you that you can switch between views. You can change the view itself, or you can switch to other pre-configured views that somebody might have already done. You're really getting the benefit of the document library right here in the context of Teams. If I can select files here and pin them to the top. So the behavior here matches that of the document library. And we're excited to share that this is a feature that we announced last year, and we're getting pretty close to rolling this out. So in the coming weeks, you'll start to see this experience in your environments. It's really important to note that what you're seeing is not just a recreated copy of the document library. It is actually the document library that's hosted inside of Teams. So we've done a lot of work over the last couple of years within the OneDrive and SharePoint team to build these hosted shareable controls that can be hosted in other experiences. So you're seeing the power of the document library right here in the context of Teams, but this shared control will also surface in other areas across Office 365 as well. I'll do a quick 10-second segue and show you the group's mailbox for the same group. I'll click on the File tab here, and just to prove it out, it's the same document library, again, powered by that same common control that's hosted in different places. So you get the benefit of doing all of the things that you would expect inside a document library right in the context of these other experiences. But I'll flip back to the files view here in the channel files. And a couple more things that I wanted to point out. You'll see that there are all these commands. They match those that you get from the document library, including sync. So if I clicked on sync right now, it will launch OneDrive, and I'll just show the documents in my File Explorer, so it will actually pull down those documents to my local machine. And what else? Yep, so that brings all of the document library capabilities. One other thing I'll show here is that you can, we support previewers for over 300 file types. And you can do all of that right in the context of Teams as well. So I think there was a 3D file that I had here. I'll click on this one. And you'll see that I'll get to interact directly with the file really quickly in a fast and fluid way right in the context of Teams as well. So this is the same thing that you can do in the document library, but again, just another way to bring OneDrive and SharePoint experiences in a rich way into the Teams context. All right, so we did the one-up previewer. All right. So we're not done with shared controls quite yet. That file browser, this experience that you're seeing that powers the channel files experience, it also powers the OneDrive for Business files that you see in Teams as well. So if I was to click on the Files app in the left rail here and then choose OneDrive, you'll see the same listing of files that's actually powered by that shared control. There is one more shared control, since we're on the topic of shared controls and shared experiences that we're bringing into Teams. I've selected a file here, and you'll notice that one of the commands that pops up is this copy link. So I'll click on copy link, and you'll see this sharing dialog pop up where I can grab the link to the particular file and send it off. I can also invoke the link settings here. So this is, again, it's the common control that you see across multiple experiences in OneDrive, in SharePoint, in Office, across Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, and in File Explorer. So it's another way to build familiarity with users and the tools to know that when they are dealing with files that they're getting a common rich set of experiences. All right. So I'm going to now cancel out of this one and switch back to the Conversations view. You might have noticed in the chats that appeared in the list here, there were a couple of posts from SharePoint News. So we have a SharePoint News connector that you can configure on a channel. So if you click on the ellipses beside the channel name, go down to connectors, you'll see that for this particular channel, I've already configured a SharePoint News connector. So what this connector does is anytime I publish a news article from the backing SharePoint site, a message will get posted into the general channel, really allowing me to engage with my collaborators right in the context of Teams. And you can see that there's already a conversation taking place on a previous news post, but if I go back to the website, or to the team site here, I did have a page that I had not published as a news post yet. It's Teams Loves SharePoint. I will promote this and turn this into a news post. And if the demo goes well, I should see back in here, you'll see that the news post shows up in Teams. So I can go and say, tell my team, hey, check this out. And so again, it's a great way to pull SharePoint content right into the context of Teams and enable my team to collaborate better. All right, how else can we bring SharePoint experiences into the Teams context? So Teams has this ability to add tabs. So using this add a tab feature, you'll see this plus icon here at the top of the screen. I'm going to click on that. And you'll see a bunch of different tab options that I can select from. There's a document library tab that I can pick to choose a document library from any arbitrary site in my tenant. There's this SharePoint tab here that I'm going to click that allows me to pick between pages and lists in the underlying team site. So there's already a bunch of pages that have been published for this particular site. I'm just going to pick the home page and save that. And what that will do is it will add a tab, and you'll see that home page that I showed you in the other tab rendering right here in Teams so that you can consume and interact with the content right here. I could easily have gone and done that for a list as well. I've previously done that already. You can see this European accounts list that's already here. And again, you can interact with it much in the same way that you're able to in the document library. So I think that's a kind of a lap around all of the different ways that you can bring SharePoint experiences into the context of Teams. I think there's one thing that I'd like to show you on how we're doing some work to bring some more of the Teams connection into the SharePoint team site as well. So if you'll notice, before I jump out of this tab, this team has 3 different channels. There's a general channel, budgets, and protocols. So if I go back to the site, let's go to the document library, have that tab open. You'll see that every channel in Teams maps to a folder in its backing site. So there's a budget folder, there's a general folder, and there's a protocols folder. If I was to select the general folder here, you'll see in the command bar, there is a go to channel command that shows up. So we know in SharePoint which folders are connected to Teams, and we introduce the ability to navigate directly into the channel conversation if that's where the work is happening. So I can also click into the general folder itself, and you'll see at the top we have a banner as well that says that this folder is connected to a channel in Teams, and we include a button at the top as well to navigate to that particular folder, or to the channel. One other piece of work that we're doing as part of this feature, which is set to roll out in the coming weeks as well, is in order to maintain a better connection between the channel folders and the channel that exists in Teams, we're preventing the ability to delete or rename the folder names from SharePoint. So I'm going to try to rename this budgets channel folder here. I'll click on save. And I'll be presented with an error message basically advising me to go to Teams because that's where the channel is managed, and I can handle that from there. All right. So I think that covers this part of the demo. There was one last part of the demo that I'll show now. We started the session with that classic team site that we groupified, wink, wink. That demo worked. There's one last thing that I'd like to do as part of that demo. So if we went through that process, took that existing site, added a group to it, what's left to do? Teamify it. All right. So had that last demo worked, you would have seen a little promotional banner that shows up in the bottom right of the bottom left of the navigation that invites group owners to add a team to the group. So I'm going to go ahead and create a team. All right, it says it was successful. I can click here to go to the team. Let's go do that. Let's do that in the browser. This should land me in the general channel, for the site that I had just clicked the button on. So I'm in the general channel for this Contoso Procurement USA site that I had as a backup if the first groupification didn't work. And there you have it. We went soup to nuts. So you didn't have to migrate any of your content from your existing sites to like a new group connected site or to like a new Microsoft team-backed site. It's all of your content is there, all of the hierarchy, the permissions, all of that exists. So it's a great opportunity for you to go and take all of your existing sites and really start to get the value of groups and teams in them. I'm going to switch back to demo now to kind of wrap this up. All right, quick recap and calls to action. Teamify your group connected sites. So that's a feature that's available now in production. If you're a group owner, you land on a group connected site, we put that banner in the left nav. You can click on that and add a Microsoft team to it. Take advantage of the full fidelity document libraries that you're going to get in your channel files experiences coming soon. You can bring more of your SharePoint content experiences directly into Teams. So bring your pages and your lists using the tabs, the SharePoint tabs in team channels. You saw the sharing. Take advantage of that familiar sharing and know that the links will always work when you're grabbing those links and sending them off in emails or in chat. And take advantage of the news connector. It's another great way to take content that you think is important for your team and publish it as a message that shows up in the channel so that you can engage in conversations around. So I think that's a wrap for us. Thank you very much for attending our session. Hope this was valuable for you. Miceile and I will stick around for some questions if you have any.